Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Read With Me. I'm yours truly, Isabel. I am here to read with you once again on a daily basis. We read. All right. We are reading because this is one of the little secrets in life that allows you to become an even better version of yourself. And one thing that I have learned today, okay, and I'm really like, how do I say this? I'm coming into this particular session, read with me session, with renewed self-confidence or renewed awareness. I'm going to call it that way. I know that in our life, we tend to have growth spurts. We have seasons, and sometimes seasons can be, of you going into the valley. And one of the things that Zig was talking about is that the people that go through the valley, okay, and the ones that go out of the valley, the ones that are able to, hit that curve, are the ones that are able to learn from what happened in the valley. They were able to grow new crops. They were able to plant new seeds. They were able to, manifest new things. And what I realized today is there was a moment that I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I allowed myself to fall into the trap of my past behaviors. And that past behavior was of me having to prove something, so when someone responds back in a certain way, automatically I have this wall of defensiveness versus I have nothing to prove, and I totally respect where you're coming from, and we may not be a good fit, and that's fine, right? Versus trying to change, trying to make it happen and all that, when in reality I've grown so much. I've put so much time, effort, resources, so much love into myself, that by allowing that to happen over and over and over, it's just like diminishing all the work that I've put in. So if you've ever had that point happen, okay, throughout the day, give yourself a little sense of grief from okay, that part of you is gone, okay, and allow yourself to receive, it's part of the grieving process, right? It's gone. Now you're in the celebratory process stage in life where you're celebrating the new you. You are embracing the new ways of thinking, the new ways of approaching life. And I'm very grateful for the team that I do have, because doing it alone, I think that's what happens to many people. I think if you do it alone, it literally breaks you down. It breaks you down so hard that you don't really see the growth that you've done, that you've been able to grow. And if you stay with the same people, they might not grow, and you are trying to grow, and then you fall into that same trap again. So anyways, I'm so excited to continue reading chapter 5 and 6 for this particular session. I'm only going to be reading one chapter on IG, and then I'm going to be reading one chapter here, or both chapters on YouTube. So if you're interested in hearing, chapter 5 and 6, go to YouTube if you're on IG. And if you're on YouTube, welcome. Love to have you here. Okay. Honestly, if this is resonating with you, if you've ever had a point where you had that happen in your life, just know that you're not alone. I'm here with you. It just happened to me. And at first I was mad, but then at the second time I was like, you know what? That was necessary, and that was so impactful. So I'm grateful for the people in my life that allow me to see that. Okay. So let's get into it. Freedom to succeed. Okay. You're at the top when you recognize, confess, develop, and use your God-given physical, mental, and spiritual abilities to the glory of God and for the benefit of mankind. I vividly remember the lady who called me in on a talk show and she cried. Mr. Ziglar, I'm 53 years old and I've never done anything in my life and now it's too late. It's all over. And I said, excuse me, ma'am, how old did you say you were? And she's like, I'm 53 and it's too late. I said, Miss, you're a spring chicken. Does your mama know where you are? She started laughing, her mind sprang open, and she was then free to listen with an open mind to what I had to say. Some people are very narrow-minded and believe they have no freedom to see beyond their current circumstances. For the person who has hit the wall that surrounds them, the first thing I advise is to pick up a good joke book. Look at or read something that is absolutely hilarious, or watch something on television that's very funny. And if you have hit the wall and feel as you can't move forward, you'd be amazed at what laughing will do for your attitude. You need to remember that though you have succeeded in one area of your life, the fun parts come when you succeed in other parts of life as well. And maybe you've made it financially. That shows you have drive, ambition, direction, and have met that goal. But now you need to look at the other goals in your life for balance. So what's the first step that you take? Remember what you read previously, that your physical health is more dependent on your relationships than even the food that you eat, your exercise program, and even the genes you inherited. Relationships are so important to so many facets of your life. So for example, concentrate on hurting your mate and making amends to your children if you have any. Maybe you've neglected them over the years. I have seen relationships over a period of time that take incredible positive turns as a result of simple attention. And attention equals love. So if you are actually giving attention to something, it is because you're providing love to that particular person, that particular thing in that particular moment. There are two things everybody wants: to be respected and appreciated. You'll be amazed how much good it will do when you start telling your spouse how much you appreciate all he or she has been doing for you over the years. Tell your children and your grandchildren that you are proud of them for what they stand for and what they're doing. Communication is so important. Conversation and developing a sense of intimacy will free you and your family of any blockages that may have built up. Here goes forgiveness. And guys, I started this particular recording and I love when this happens, when like something happens for me, a scenario happens for me in life, and then all of a sudden when I start to read, it actually brings the wisdom, of what I was feeling into a book. Strong. Look at this. Another factor that tends to build up is a degree of resentment. Maybe you've tried to be successful, but something is holding you back. Bitterness and anger will hold you back. You'll never be as happy as long as you're bitter and angry. Now, that may sound foolish, but it's more often true than false. It would be perfectly natural for you to at least temporarily feel the way if you have been abused or neglected. But if somebody has abused you and you've not forgiven that person is running your life. You are bound by that person. He or she has control over you and you have no freedom. Now think about it for a moment. If they abused you in any way or neglected you, they had a negative impact on your past and they are negatively impacting your present at this very moment. Now, surely you're not going to give them permission to negatively impact your future. Years ago, I gave this talk in Detroit, Michigan, and I went into the detail about the value of forgiveness. A young man heard me say that as long as you carry that resentment, you will never have any peace of mind. But the thing that really got to him was when I said, one of these days, you will either say about forgiveness. One of these days, you will either say about forgiveness, I wish I had, or I'm glad I did. The young man told me, what you said sprang open my mind. When you first started talking about forgiving, I thought that what my dad did to me was so horrible. He doesn't deserve to be forgiven. And when you said that forgiving the other person is for my benefit, it made me wonder. And if I couldn't forgive for their benefit, it would be for my benefit. Then you said the amazing thing is both of us will come out as winners. Well, I thought about that, and I hadn't spoken to my father in years, and I wanted to actually see him, and I didn't want to talk to him on the phone. And then when I accused him of what he had done, he denied it completely. He had blocked it out of his mind. And I just looked at my dad and said, Dad, I want you to know that you did it. But Dad, I want you to also know that two things. First of all, I forgive you. And second, I love you. And the young man looked at me and continued, Mr. Ziglar, when I said that he broke down and wept like a baby, though our relationship isn't perfect, it gets closer every time we get together. My father is a relatively young man, so now he can enjoy his grandchildren. And if you've ever hit a wall, look at all these areas in your life. Look at all your friends, your family, all your relationships. Forgive whoever needs forgiveness, if humanly possible. Commit to following the golden rule and the idea that you can have everything in life that you want, not just money, but everything in life you want is just so you can help other people get what they want and concentrate on them. That will take you to a place where you will really be able to enjoy the view from the top. Everything that you want. For 15 years, I was in direct sales in the cookware business, showing the cookware through cooking demonstrations. And after several years, I finally realized I needed help and ran an ad in a newspaper. All I wanted was somebody to do all the work. I wanted somebody to go buy the groceries, get the vegetables ready to be cooked, to cook the meal, serve it, and then wash the dishes in the cookware. That's all I wanted them to do. Ha! Well, a very quiet lady named Jerry responded to the ad, and she had been earning money by taking in sewing and baking cakes. When I told her that what I wanted her to do, she said, I love to cook and I don't mind washing dishes. I'll be happy to work with you under one condition, that I can actually start working with you until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that under no circumstances will you require me to participate in the actual demonstration in front of people. And you can tell I'm shy and quiet. I graciously agreed to accept her terms, and things went wonderfully well for a couple months. The one night I said, Jerry, I want you to deliver the cookware I have sold to people and take it into their homes and show them how to use the cookware. Sheer terror came into her eyes. She literally started to shake and said, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't teach ladies how to cook on their stoves. I said, but Jerry, every night for the last 2 months, that's what you've been doing, right? She's like, yeah, but you're always here and I know you'll bail me out if I fool it up. I'm not going to do it. I just can't do it, all right? Fortunately, we had about a 30-mile ride back to her home, and I guess she got to thinking about it. Just before she got out, she took her finger in my face and said, yeah, I'll do it. But if you ever do this again, I'm gonna let you have it. I'm not gonna get a wink of sleep tonight, and I'm sure I'll do a miserable job. And well, I don't know if she slept that night or not. I know I didn't. The next night at about 10 o'clock, I got the most exciting phone call. For 20 minutes, Jerry gave me every detail of what happened when she delivered the cookware to the first couple. She told me excitedly. They had a cup of coffee and a piece of cake waiting for me. And Zig, I had the most wonderful time. And when I got ready to leave, they thanked me profusely and invited me to come back and bring my girls. And they said that the next time they'll do the cooking. And they closed by saying, Jerry, you have such a beautiful personality and you're so professional. I so regret that I did not keep that customer's name and address, because those words literally transformed her whole life, her complete life. The shy, cake baking seamstress became one of the most highly motivated, enthusiastic people I've ever known. It didn't happen that day, that week, that month, or even that year. But less than 5 years later, Jerry Arrowwood was a vice president in charge of training for a multi-million-dollar company. She found the courage it took to make that delivery. It took commitment. She had compassion. She knew that if the merchandise was not delivered the next day, it would affect my reputation. Now, I am absolutely certain that when Jerry made that decision to do it, she wasn't thinking that she always wanted to be the vice president in charge of sales training of a multi-million-dollar company. She wasn't thinking, I can have everything that I want in life and I just help enough people to get what they want. I'm absolutely certain that she did not have that go through her mind. But what did go through her mind was how I was depending on her, and it would be the right thing to do as a favor to me. She extended a helping hand at a time that it was needed. And when you go through life with that attitude, other good things will happen. She got there with the one set of values that they were all good. But when she used those values, then other values and skills and talents were added. It started with courage, because I'm absolutely certain that she was frightened to death until she made that first delivery. I'd be willing to bet that she ran to the second one and the third one. Her fire was lit that night, and she kept that fuel on that fire. It kept burning. Delivering that cookware was not in her job description. But it's true that when you do more than you're paid to do, you will eventually be paid more for what you do. Jerry developed into a real optimistic, caring, positive thinker and skilled speaker and trainer because she took what she already had and put it into work. And that rest developed because she was free of self-imposed limitations. Now that's beautiful. Self-imposed limitations are what's going to hinder you from your next best opportunity. And if you've ever been in that position in your life where you do have a little bit of, self-imposed limitations, this is hopefully a flashing light in your eye, reminding you that you're the only one that's putting those self-imposed limitations on yourself. People are eager to meet you. People are eager to find a solution in you that you actually provide. Okay? So don't forget that. In July 1972, I boarded a flight from Dallas to Norfolk, Virginia. I was the first one to board, and a few moments later, a mother entered carrying an infant, leading a toddler, and a little girl about 4 years old followed. The little 4-year-old stopped to watch personnel loading the food, and she was fascinated. Then she turned and looked into the cockpit and saw the pilot and two others sitting there, and more electricity gadgetry in all probability than she had seen in her entire lifetime. When she turned around, as the saying goes, her eyes were as big as saucers. Wow. Okay, this is going to be a really, really powerful story. So make sure to go to YouTube and check out the rest, because it's about to go down. Okay, she's talking about many immigrants look at this ad in the piece of paper and see jobs that pay $6 an hour, and it will blow her mind. And that's more than she made in 6 days from her home. So, okay, it's about to go down. I'll see you on YouTube. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Okay, so now that we're on the same page here, my YouTube people, okay, I'm excited to just dig in a little bit deeper with what we're reading. Okay. So in July 1972, I boarded a flight from Dallas going into Norfolk, Virginia, and I was the first one to board. A few moments later, a mother entered carrying an infant, leading a toddler and a little girl of about 4 years old. The little 4-year-old stopped to watch personnel loading the food, and she was fascinated. Then she turned and looked to the cockpit and saw the pilot and the two others sitting there, and more electronic gadgetry in all probability that she had ever seen in her life. When she turned around, and as the saying goes, her eyes were as big as saucers. It was obvious that this family was taking their first ride on an airplane. The little girl turned again and looked down at the long, long aisle and said, wow, that's what legal immigrants do when they come into America. They see the beauty in their surroundings and everything that there is. And that's one of the reasons legal immigrants are 4 times as likely to become millionaires in America as are people who were born here. They come in with a dream. They know everybody here is rich, and they can become rich if they wake up to new experience. Many immigrants look at ads in the paper and see jobs that pay $6 an hour, and it blows their minds. Man, that's more than I made in 6 days at home. They work hard, they work overtime, they enroll in the community college, they do things, and amazing things happen. When is the last time that you looked at your mate and said, wow? When is the last time that you looked at your child and said, wow? Or your mom and dad? When is the last time that you looked at a sunset or a sunrise and said, wow? It demonstrates an attitude that makes a difference in life. It will make a difference in your life. And let me simply say that this is one of the most important things that we can ever do. Never lose the awe of the day. That's beautiful. I'm an immigrant. Your impact on others can be very, very significant. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. His name is Louis Holtz, and chances are that you've already heard of him. He was a football coach, one of the best in the country. Louis was fired from his first job at the University of South Carolina. And now let me tell you something about Louis Holtz. When he was at the University of Arkansas, he adopted the philosophy that you can have everything in life if you want to, if you just help enough people to get what they want. Now, here's the way it works in coaching. A lot of people don't realize it, but when he was at Notre Dame 11 years, he promoted 10 head coaches from his assistant coaches. Now, you might say, wait a minute, weren't they his best assistant coaches? Absolutely. That's the reason they got the offer to become the head coaches. Well, that's good for the coaches, but what does it do for Lou? How does he get what he wants out of it? Well, an interesting happened after the second Notre Dame coach was promoted to the head coach of another team. Assistant coaches all over the country heard about Lou Holtz was actually teaching the assistant coaches on how to become head coaches, and they started applying into drones to coach at Notre Dame. Lou was able to replace his good coaches with sometimes even better coaches, and he got a bonus. Those new coaches brought in all of their high school contracts with them. The philosophy really does work. Never lose the awe of the day. Pursue opportunity. Now let's start looking at what this philosophy is really all about. One time when I got into a cab in Mobile, Alabama, I met the driver who was from Nigeria. I got a great interest in immigrants. So I asked him how long he'd been in America, and he said 12 years. I asked him if he'd been going to school and taking advantage of everything here in the United States, and he said, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm getting my PhD in just 2 more months, and my wife already has her master's degree. I said, oh my God, that's great. Do you have any children? And he's like, yes, we have 4. Their ages are 4, 6, 8, and 10 years old. And those who are in school are all on the honor roll. I asked him how he's been able to raise a family and get an education all in 12 years. And he said, as you can see, I'm driving a cab right now, and I've also loaded and unloaded trucks. I've been a night watchman. I've been in security. I've been a tutor, and I've done whatever it took to accomplish the objective. And I want you to know that my wife has worked fully as hard as I have been working all of this time. And after you receive your PhD in a couple months, like I said, then what's the plan? And he's like, well, I've already signed a contract with a major Wall Street firm. My doctorate is in business and finance, and I've got 2-year contract with them. So then I will go back to Nigeria where I have a prominent position in the government waiting for me. Now, I want you to take a moment to think of the story and I just told you. Can you imagine in 12 years what he and his wife had to go through? The number of days they would come home dead tired, but there were the needs of the children to take care of, the number of times their bodies cried for sleep, but they had a dream, they had a vision, they wanted more. Where did you get that motivation to do all of this? That's remarkable. When I went to school my first day in Nigeria and came home and asked my parents to help me with my homework, for the first time I learned that they were illiterate. They couldn't teach me. He said they were horribly embarrassed. And that day, when I was less than 6 years old, I decided that I would get an education. I never wanted to see my children with that expression on their face like I had on my face when my parents told me that they couldn't help me learn how to read. To be all that you can be, you need a dream, commitment, courage, and discipline. And then the formula leads to freedom. God damn, I freaking love this story so much. Freedom or slavery. For a number of years, a lot of people were singing about being free. In many cases, what they meant was, I want to be free to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it in the way that I want to do it. Well, many times that attitude actually leads to slavery. And when you exercise your freedom to express yourself at the lowest level, you ultimately condemn yourself to live at that level. Yeah, I agree. And that kind of ties back into like if you hit a level of growth and you allow yourself to get back to that pettiness or that, ignorant mindset because of, habitual patterns from the past, if you allow yourself to get back to that slump, then that's how you condemn yourself to live at that low level. Now, you're free to experiment with drugs and alcohol, but a certain percentage of the people who experiment with those things end up being slaves to them. Freedom, according to the dictionary, means exemption from power or control by any other. Freedom, according to the dictionary, means exception from power or control by another. You're free in our society to indulge in smoking and drinking, and as a practical matter, illegal drugs and virtually every immoral behavior. The choice is yours, but the choice is all too often becomes a habit and then an addiction, which means at that point you've given up your freedom and have chosen slavery. Pythagoras said, no man is free who cannot command himself. Oof. I love that one. Gandhi said, it is my stern conviction that no man loses his freedom except through his own weakness. Charles Kingsley said that there are two freedoms, the false, where a man is free to do what he likes, and the true, where a man is free to do what he ought. And the Bible says, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Will Durant, the noted historian, said, have we too much freedom? Have we so long ridiculed authority in the family? Discipline and education, rules and art, decency and conduct, and law of the state that our liberation has brought us to the chaos in the family, in the schools, and morals, arts, ideas, of government? We forgot to make ourselves intelligent when we made ourselves free. Those are really some mouthfuls of wisdom about freedom. If you from the top gives you the freedom to be the very best self, to make the most contributions to others while enjoying a richer, fuller life yourself, free to learn the new things that will make a difference, free to be kind and generous to nice to other people, free to use the abilities to accomplish objectives and are worthwhile that will mean to you, to society, your friends, family, and to our nation. And I sometimes think we forget the incredible price our founders paid to give us the freedom in this country that we enjoy. But the reality is that if we abuse the freedom and don't use it to become the best that we can be, the day will definitely come when we lose all the freedom that we have. A study was done by a British anthropologist who studied civilizations spanning over 3,000 years. He found that in 100% of the cases, when those civilizations failed, it was because they abused the freedoms that they had. The family values deteriorated, society turned into immoral ways of living, and the crime abounded. And as a result, those civilizations failed. Freedom is the most priceless possession. Amen. I agree with that. Remember, we are a nation of laws, not of people. We follow those laws. We have the freedom to become the best we can be. And that's when we will really enjoy our freedom, because our view from the top will be so magnificent. Here it goes. Discipline. Walmart founder Sam Walton said that, "I think I overcame every single one of my personal shortcomings by sheer passion I brought to my work. It took courage for that cab driver to leave his native Nigeria in search of education and opportunity. It was more difficult than we can imagine, and discipline is so incredibly important, yet so many people misunderstand discipline." I love what Sybil Stanton said. "True discipline isn't on your back, needling you with imperatives. It's at your side, nudging you with incentives." True discipline isn't on your back, needling you with imperatives. It's at your side, nudging you with incentives. Strong. How true that is. Discipline is the refining part of our formula that makes everything else come into play. It makes it happen for you. A lot of people say that they don't like the idea of discipline, and I know people rebel against discipline. But think about it in this way. Discipline and punishment are two entirely different things, and punishment is what you do when discipline fails. Discipline is a reward. It rewards you for what you have done. Think about it like this. The sailor reaches a desired destination when disciplined to be obedient to the compass. People who have objectives, who have a destination, who discipline themselves will get what they want. You can have the things that you want and more than you've ever dreamt of. But much of it depends on your commitment and discipline and the courage to follow through. Here goes imagination. A lot of people say that in the United States of America is the most powerful nation in the world, and I'm not going to argue with that. But I am going to build a case here for an imagination, because there's incredible power there. And I want to get you excited about developing and using your dreams and your imagination. I want you to get as excited as little Johnny, a second grader. One Friday afternoon, the teacher said, "Class, if anything exciting happens over the weekend, tell us about it on Monday morning." So Monday morning, little Johnny was seated in the back in his desk, but he looked very excited. And the teacher said, "Johnny, it looks like you had a really great weekend." He was like, "Yes, ma'am, it was exciting. Me and my daddy went fishing and we caught 75 catfish, and they all weighed 75 pounds. I was like, "Now, Johnny, you know that's simply not true." And then he was like, "Oh, yes, ma'am, it is. My dad is a great fisherman, and I'm even better than he is. We caught 75 catfishes. They all weighed 75 pounds, said Johnny. The teacher said, "Now, Johnny, if I were to tell you that on the way to school this morning, about 2 blocks from here, out of nowhere, a big old 10-foot grizzly bear weighing about 1,000 pounds rose up in front of me, was about to grab me and eat me up when I was a little old 8-pound yellow dog jumped up and grabbed that grizzly bear by the nose, threw him down backward, broke his neck, and killed him. Johnny, if I told you that, would you believe it?" He said, "Oh, yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, that's my dog." That's how excited I want you to get about your imagination and your dreams, how you can impact so many other people, and in the process, make incredible progress yourself. It takes both for it really to happen. So give yourself the freedom to use your imagination and dream. I mean, that's awesome, especially when you're a kid, like, a young kid, I think that was one of the cool things that, like, at least I had to instill in myself with my brother, because when we came to America in 1995 from Venezuela, okay, I'll share with you a quick story. My parents got a job at the Sun Sentinel, and for 3 hours I think it was on a like Saturday morning, like at 4 a.m. till like 7 a.m. We would pack the van with like breakfast, and because we weren't allowed to work, Alejandra and me, my brother and I, we weren't allowed to work. We just brought some toys. So like I would bring my Legos, and Alejandro brought his like coloring book or something. And then we would get to the place, and my parents hid us underneath the table where they were assembling the newspapers, because you couldn't have children in the assembly line. And then I remember like Alejandra and I, we had to stay busy because my parents told me, the firstborn, good, responsible one, they're like, you can't make any sound. Like, you have to keep it down because we'll get in trouble. So like I always had to find a way to ensure that my brother and I, we were like good, and when you're young, regardless of the time, whether it's 4 a.m. or 7 a.m., it doesn't matter. You want to have fun. So I always had like little ways to keep ourselves entertained. And it was just like, you always have to find a way to use your imagination to not look at your existing experiences, but expand them. So we would cut up little magazines, and we would use like glue and create vision boards. We had no clue what we were doing, or we would use the Legos, and I would build like awesome cars or like buildings with it, and Alejandro would build, draw his things. But like it hit me really hard listening to that Nigeria immigrant story, because I mean, my parents in Venezuela, like my dad's a lawyer, right? And then my mom is a CPA, like an accountant in Venezuela. But then they came here and they were like zero. Like the years of schooling, the degrees and everything, it was zero. Like they were getting paid nothing, for years. And they had to maintain us as kids. So how in the world do you maintain these growing children in a brand new environment when they don't even speak the language, and keep afloat, like keep yourself sane? So even now, like saying this out loud, I'm so proud of my parents. I'm so proud of how we've overcome all those things. And that's one of the real reasons why I feel like Vanessa and I, we've built this business the way that we have, is because we appreciate the hard work. We appreciate when people are out there working and like, putting in that effort to do the best that they can. We don't take that for granted, and we respect the hustle. We appreciate the hustle because we've had to hustle, and that's how we built our business too. Like we burned all our boats or whatever, and we went to Asia, and we started literally just how we started, in a brand new place, not knowing the language, not having any money, not knowing anyone. And we began our business in the same exact way. And now we're here. Wow, I'm so proud. This is a moment where I'm grateful that I can share it with you if you're listening to it, because just know that you can accomplish anything in life that you want. Anything in life that you want. I'm going to get into chapter 6, which is the final chapter that we're going to go over. Okay. And it's funny because it's like growing your dreams. That's the title. Let's get into it. Growing your dreams. You're at the top when you know a win doesn't make you, and failure doesn't break you. You're at the top when you know a win doesn't make you, and a failure doesn't break you. That's strong. You run your day by the clock, as demonstrated by the day before vacation, but you run your life with a vision. You have to have dreams. When Helen Keller was asked what it felt like to be blind, she said it was much better to have no sight than to have no vision. Solomon said, many people perish for lack of vision. Albert Schweitzer, the great missionary doctor in Africa, when asked how he was doing, he said, my sight grows dim, but my vision is clearer than ever. We need to have dreams. We need to have vision. Walt Disney didn't see a mouse. He saw millions of kids of all ages enjoying his presentations. He built an empire. Neil Rubenstein served as president of Harvard University from 1991 to 2001, and his mother was a part-time waitress, and his father was a prison guard. But as a young boy, Neil made a very astute observation that there is a direct correlation between performance and reward. So as a youngster, he determined that the way he would perform better is to have a better education. And that despite what his parents were doing, whom he loved so very much, he wanted to do more with his life. He set higher objectives, and you absolutely have to have dreams. I love what Thoreau said. If one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. If you build castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be, not put the foundations under them. Why don't more people dream bigger? I believe the story of gentleman Jim Corbett, heavyweight boxing champion of the world, has a great deal to say. He was doing road work one morning when he spotted a fisherman who was being very successful. He was pulling in big fish and little fish. Every time he cast it out, he would make a catch. But Corbett noticed that the fisherman would take the big ones and throw them back in. He would keep the little ones and put them in his creel. Well, that puzzled him. So Corbett ran over to him and said, "Sir, I'm a fisherman myself, but I've never seen a fisherman throw the big ones back. I want to know why you're doing that." And the fisherman sadly shook his head and said, "Man, I hate to do it, but I have no other choice. You see, all I've got at home is a little bitty frying pan." Now, don't laugh, because he's talking about you and me. We have the big dream, the big idea, but no sooner do we catch the vision than we think, "Oh no, Lord, this is too big when all I got is this little bitty frying pan. Give me a little one so I don't have to struggle so much." Besides, if that idea was any good, somebody else would have already thought about it. Give me the little one. Let me stay comfortable. Don't get me out of my comfort zone. Well, I want you to get out of that comfort zone. I want you to clearly understand that you can make some changes and you can build your dreams. But again, let me say, you got to make some radical changes in small steps, one word at a time. At the age of 37, Vince Robert was driving a taxi. He only finished the 7th grade. Now, where do you think that his career and his life were going? Many people would say that he probably ended up in welfare or somebody else would support him. But one day, Vince Robert, while waiting for a fare at the airport or at the hotel where he spent hours every day doing exactly that, suddenly was hit with a bolt of lightning thought. He went to a bookstore and bought a 20-pound Webster dictionary. He placed the dictionary on the front seat of his taxi and started on page 1, word 1. He began to memorize the dictionary, and before he reached an eighth of an inch deep into the dictionary, he noticed something. He was understanding things like never before. A Georgetown medical school study discovered that in 100% of the cases, with no exception, with your vocabulary increases, your IQ also increases. He started understanding as a result that he took every dime he could spare and invested it back into the stock market. And when he got dividends, he'd reinvest it. Over a period of time, he bought the 19-car cab company and became a very wealthy man. A couple of things that you need to know, that you need to understand about Vince Roberts' story is that number one, he didn't start investing one day and buy the cab company the next day. Number two, he gave up some things that he wanted, like fancy clothes, a fancy apartment, and fancy automobiles. He gave up what he wanted in order to get those things that he really wanted later on. That's called discipline, commitment, responsibility, maturity. The bottom line is that he ended up a very wealthy man. Now, how did he do it? Well, learning one word at a time, investing $1 at a time in radical change, radical improvements, radical growth in managed steps. I was presenting a seminar several years ago in Dallas, Texas. I was speaking about self-image and self-worth. When the seminar was over, a young man came up to me, incredibly excited, and she said, "Mr. Ziglar, what you said today meant a lot to me. My father was forced into retirement a few months ago. He's healthy. He didn't want to retire. He actually loved what he was doing and wanted to keep on working, but they had the deadline. He was 65. It's all over then. You know that what bureaucracy is, right? An inept group of disorganized people totally committed to the concept of dramatically increasing their numbers so they can more effectively convert pure raw energy to solid waste." Beautiful. Well, as a result of his retirement, my father has really become difficult to live with. He's always been complaining about this, that, and the other. And in a few months, he and my mom are moving to Dallas, and I was at my wit's end to what I could do to help him. I didn't have a clue. And then I looked at the list of ideas you gave me today, and I can help him. I looked over the list that she had written, and there was one single item listed that I had even hinted about in my talk. What happened? It was very clear and very simple. She knew a whole lot about her dad, and she loved her dad a great deal. She knew a whole lot about life and the result of her lifetime experience. What she did was add new information to what she already knew. Consequently, the more new stuff that you learn, the more valuable what you already know becomes. Here's what the imagination comes into the picture. The old information, in essence, in the cerebral popped up. The new information popped up, and the old looked at the new and started a conversation and said, "Well, if we got together, we could probably create something fabulous." That's exactly what happened. That's the reason we need to learn every day of our lives. We received more than 100 times as many letters from people saying my books and tapes changed their lives as we do from people who say that the seminar or speech changed their life. Why is that? Well, using the time in your car, going back and forth to your job can make a huge difference. Several years ago, I was visiting a scholar for 2 years at the University of South Carolina, California. While I was there, they were doing a study and found that if you live in a metropolitan area and drive 12,000 miles a year, in 3 years' time, you can acquire the equivalent of 2 years of college education in your automobile university. 12 years ago, I sold this idea to a young man named Stephen Payne, a Cherokee Indian from Bartsville, Oklahoma. In the ensuing years, he enrolled big time in the automobile university. He earned his GED when he was 22 years of age, and today Stephen Payne is a translator for his company in both Spanish and French. He also speaks fluent Italian, Japanese, German, Russian, Portuguese, and Norwegian. He's currently learning Cherokee, and he's starting to learn Polish as well. Stephen tells me that he's learned over 90% of it in automobile university. Don't just sit there to get where you are going. You want to get there better prepared than when you ever left home. And when you do leave your job, you don't want to just sit there to get there. You want to get there better prepared to be a good husband, good wife, good mother, good father when you do get there. I never give advice that I don't take myself. All the way to recordings and seminars, I listen to tapes myself and almost always pick up an invaluable idea or illustration that's going to help me in what I do. More valuable, more creative, New information added to old knowledge makes you more valuable and more creative. In my own life, I enjoy spending time with that beautiful redheaded wife of mine, and I enjoy exercise programs, and I enjoy playing golf. Now, to get to do those things, I've got to utilize my time. I don't consider watching television the best utilization of my time that is truly identified as an income suppressant. It is also an enjoy life suppressant. So I do very little of that. I do watch educational programs, but I'm generally reading and doing other things. I read a lot. I've read an average of nearly 3 hours a day for the past 30 years. I never go anywhere without something to read. If I have an appointment for lunch at 12, I take a little book or tear out a magazine article that interests me and I put it in my pocket. I'm going to be on time, but the person might not be. So when I do get to the dentist, I know that the dentist is going to be working on me for about 20 minutes. So I spend the other 40 minutes reading something that I want to know. When I go to the airport and everybody is waiting, I don't just sit there and complain about how crowded the airport is. What good does that do? Rather, I'm actually reading, learning something. It keeps me sharp and it keeps my attitude right. But more important than that, those two things, it increases my creativity again. Again, the more that you learn, the more valuable you are going to be. Yeah, I agree. Dreams. My first dream was to buy the used car owned by Fred Shirley, who was the rural mail carrier in the small town where I grew up in Mississippi. I was going to get that little car, was going to be at the Chevrolet dealership when he traded it in. And when I got my 1 week vacation, I was going to get that little car and I was going to drive that sucker as far as I could in 3 days. Then I was going to turn it around and drive it back 3 days because I wanted to be in church on Sunday. My mama would require that and I wanted to anyhow. That was my first dream. Interesting. My second dream was that I was going to run a meat market because a man who owned the market in town told me he'd help me get started and that he made over $5,000 the year before. Now in the 1940s, that was a whole bunch of money. And then I got the idea that I wanted to get into the Naval Air Corps. My dream was to join. Now the odds were 20-1 that I was going to make it. I fought the odds, I got in, and as a result, they started me in college. The war ended. Had it not, I would have never seen the inside of a college. Well, how did I make it happen? Well, because of my first grade teacher, she came to teach me when I was at home with an illness and had to miss 4 months of school. She taught me my lessons, brought me to speed, and gave me the assignments. Had she not done that, I would have failed the first grade. I would have been drafted right out of high school into World War II. I never would have joined in the Air Corps. I never would have seen the inside of the college, and I would have never realized my dream after that dream, which was to be the #1 in sales when I started in the career field. Now my dream today is very modest. I want to be the difference maker in the family, personally and professionally, in the lives of enough people to make a positive difference in the world. Pretty presumptuous, most people would say. And yes, but amazing thing about modern technology is that we can all go around the world immediately. My words have been translated into 38 languages and dialects, and we've sold more than 6 million books and millions of cassette tapes. We're making that dream into reality. Here's a dream foundation. When you have your dream, you need to build a foundation on it. T. Lawrence puts it this way: all men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night, in the dusty recess of their minds, wake up in the day to find it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous women, for they may act on their dreams with eyes open to make them possible. Now, you don't need to start with a big dream, but you need to start with a dream. Ben Feldman is recognized as undoubtedly the greatest life insurance salesman ever lived. He lived in a huge metropolis in Liverpool, Ohio. And as a beginning salesperson, he was struggling to survive by selling $5,000 policies. Then one day he had a little dream and decided to add one more zero to the number. And instead of concentrating on $5,000 policies, he started talking about $50,000 policies, and his dream came true. Then he had another big dream of selling policies with one more zero, 500,000 policies, and he did. He dreamt about adding another zero, and he started selling $500,000 insurance policies in one day, and then 5 million insurance policies, and he did. Then one day he said, suppose I dream the impossible dream. Suppose I add one more zero and sold $50 million insurance policies. Dreams grow as you grow. That's the reason growth becomes so enormously important. Martin Luther King Jr. puts it this way: never give up on a dream just because the length of time it will take to accomplish it. The time will pass anyway. Dreams are important. Why don't more people realize it? I lost weight years ago and kept it off, but I've noticed literally hundreds and hundreds of people whom I've come to know who get on a diet and exercise program and get so excited. They would tell all their friends, relatives, and complete strangers about how good they felt and how great it was to be alive. But I'd see them 2 years later and they've got no enthusiasm, no zest, and the weight is back. That puzzles me for a long time. And then one day I learned about a study when I was listening into an automobile university done by Stanford University, and here's what it said: that 95% of people who hear, understand, and agree with a principle do not have the ability to apply it to their lives because they do not have the necessary resources. Books, tapes, and seminars are the resources, but tomorrow's traffic jams will drown out a lot of what you hear today. Tomorrow's problems that we encounter in everyday life will eat away at much of the emotion that is there when we're so excited about the new venture. Why do I put so much emphasis on the automobile university? Because it keeps you fueled. It's food for the brain. Remember, seeing the amusing Energizer Bunny ads on television? Well, he keeps going and going and going. He runs on batteries, and those batteries will eventually be run down. Here's your action plan, okay? We human beings have a better battery between our ears, identified as the brain or the mind. That does not run down if you keep feeding it. That is one of the objectives. Always, when I talk with people, whether directly or indirectly, my objective is to get them to take action. And when you are finished reading this book, if all you say is, well, that was nice, and I have a good warm feeling, then I have not met my objective. After all, you can get a good warm feeling by taking a bath. And let me encourage you to understand, unless you follow through with action, you will be disappointed in yourself. What is an action plan and why is it so important? Let me illustrate the importance with a true story. When I was a young sales manager, I came up with a little idea. I asked my salespeople to write me a letter every day because we lose so much time and we don't know where we lose it. I encouraged them to keep the journal and send it to me. So for instance, rose the morning at 6:30, and then and they listened the next things that they did. They discovered that there are about 3 hours in 5, 10, 15, and 20-minute segments when people do absolutely nothing. And as a result of keeping track of the activities throughout the day, those who followed through on their action plan sold over twice as much as those who did not. It's an absolute fact that people who go on eating and exercise problems, if they keep record on a daily basis of what they ate and what they did, they will lose weight faster and keep off longer. It's as true for salespeople as for people who want to lose weight. It's true for everybody who wants to climb the stairway at the top. Just remember, the most difficult thing to do is get out of the crowd at the bottom. You start getting out of that crowd when you start taking action with a journal. If you will journal every day, write down what you did, the impact that you've had on other people, how you can improve what you're doing, the feeling that you get when you encourage and help someone else, how pleased or satisfied you are with your day's efforts, you will rise to the top. I talk about the day before vacation and how people all over the world get more done on that day because the night before, the day before, people plan what they're going to do on the last day before vacation. Not only do they plan what you're going to do that day, but you also need to have an action plan for each day. That way you're in charge of your own life and you can accomplish so much more. I can't say it too strongly. You need to journal. You need to keep records of your time. There's no need to be long-winded. Just simply write the significant points critically, citing particularly when you received encouragement from someone and when you gave encouragement to someone. The next step in the action plan is to write your definition of success based on what you've been reading in this book and based on how you move from here to there and achieve significance in the process. Thinking along those lines, consider this question: if I die tomorrow, would this definition of success leave me feeling my life was a success? And you might think that's a pretty heavy question if you're just 25 years of age. Well, my friend, it's an established fact that all of us are going to die. So think about it as this serious vein. If I died today, would I have any regrets? Would you have any regrets about the life that you have lived and the things that you've accomplished? Have you really met your objectives? Are you on the way to achieving the objectives that you set out? When you achieve these objectives that you have defined as being successful, would it really fit all the criteria? And examine yourself carefully. Are you happy? Are you healthy? Are you at least reasonably prosperous and secure? Do you have friends and peace of mind, good family relationships, and the hope that the future is going to be even better? Do you love people and are you loved? When you can say yes to all these questions, then my friend, I would be able to say to you that yes, you really have achieved significance. It means very simply that you must touch all the bases. You must touch the physical, mental, and spiritual if you're going to achieve complete success. And you've got to deal with your personal life, your family life, and your business life. Yes, your financial life is going to figure in there too. And when you look at the overall plan, you'll notice this little thing called synergy. That's when you put it all together, they work together, and your life is in harmony. And that's when good things happen. And that's when you've achieved significance. That's when you'll enjoy the view from the top. That's strong. And that concludes chapter 4 and 5, or 5 and 6. And tomorrow we'll cover chapter 7 and 8. Yeah, that's going to be really, really powerful. And honestly, like I got a lot out of it, a lot of emotion from this reading, to be honest with you. Like it was just a lot to take in. And if you do journal, I think this is my journal and I write in it mostly every day. Okay. But I do write specific things like things that I want to do, but I also doodle and I draw out exactly what I want and how things interconnect with one another. I'm really good at this, I'm really good at that, I'm really good at this, what I really enjoyed, and I feel good about it too. Or like if I'm having a problem that I can't solve, I tend to put it into words first. So then I feel like it's out of my head onto a piece of paper and I can actually look at the situation in a different point of view. So that's very important. And I also liked the fact that he's like, wherever I go, I like to keep a book with me. I like to carry a book or something to read so I can keep my mind active. And honestly, with everything that we've covered in the past, 7 months now, or like 6 to 8 months. August, we're in 8 months now. Okay. I feel like we've been able to accomplish so much because of the simple fact that we've been reading every day. It did, like, I don't have more than 3 days or 5 days that I don't read and sit down and read a book, in the sense of like accomplishing and finally reading that whole book. It's so good. It really is. It makes me feel great. But anyways, I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day, and you continue to just keep that view from the top as a basis for your significance and your success. Much love to you. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and talk to you soon. Bye.